Welcome back to Top 10 Scary Urban Legends here. Today is all about the sci-fi universe and the terrifying technology within each. From the Men in Black Neuralyzers that make you forget everything, to lightsabers, you'd be surprised that these things could theoretically exist nowadays. I'm your host Andrew, and let's get right into this one. Number 10, force fields. As we see in some sci-fi movies, a force field is a perfect all-around shield used to protect whatever is inside of it. While this technology seems foreign to us, it turns out it actually isn't. Aerospace and defense giant Boeing has been awarded a patent for a revolutionary new system that aims to protect military vehicles and structures from the devastating effects of shockwaves caused by explosives from missiles or improvised explosive devices. Dubbed a force field-like system, it is designed to intercept and reduce the energy density of the shockwaves before they can cause damage. The proposed system involves a combination of lasers, electricity, and microwaves that rapidly heat up in the air between the vehicle or structure and the incoming blast. This creates a denser plasma shield than the surrounding air. This plasma shield is able to deflect, reflect, or absorb the energy from the shockwaves, mitigating its destructive effects. Unlike the impenetrable force fields of science fiction movies, this system is not designed to prevent direct impacts or shrapnel. Instead, it is specifically aimed at protecting a targeted area, such as a vehicle carrying troops or a building like a command center or hospital, from the after effects of nearby explosions. And it works by detecting the velocity and shape of an incoming threat, then using those calculations to generate a force field on the spot of impact rather than covering an entire area. Number 9, Neuralyzer from Men in Black. The Neuralyzer from Men in Black is quite possibly one of the coolest and most technologically advanced weapons in science fiction. Not much bigger than a pen and able to fit in a jacket pocket, the Neuralyzer is capable of wiping a human memory for as long as the user intends, just by using a flash of light. Imagine being able to forget all the traumas and negative experiences in your life. It would be like hitting the reset button on your mind. While we haven't been able to create such a device yet, scientists are experimenting with memory editing and are seeing some success from it. New York researchers have created a new experimental drug capable of blocking PKM-zeta, a substance that the brain needs to retain most learned information. After it is administered, the drug can reach areas of the brain that hold certain types of memory associated with emotions and motor skills. This opens up the possibility of treating conditions like dementia, PTSD, and other memory-related illnesses. However, scientists are quite confident that the same memory editing technique can be successfully applied to humans. Tapping into the science can be considered unethical. While it will most likely be used to treat dementia and other illnesses, we can't entirely rule out its use as a building block for real-life weaponized neuralyzers in the distant future. Number 8, a lightsaber. Everyone's favorite weapon in the galaxy usually turns out to be a lightsaber from the movie Star Wars. While Star Wars seems to have technology light years away from our own, it turns out that this iconic beam of energy is actually quite possible. A group led by Harvard professor of physics Mikhail Lukin and MIT professor of physics Vladimir Vuletic have managed to coax photons into binding together to form molecules, a state of matter that until recently has been purely theoretical. The discovery, which is described in a recent paper in Nature, runs contrary to decades of accepted wisdom about the nature of light. Photons have long been described as massless particles that don't interact with each other, but the newly discovered photonic molecules behave less like traditional lasers and more like something you might find in science fiction, the lightsaber. To get the normally massless photons to bind to each other, the researchers couldn't rely on something like the Force. They instead turned to a set of more extreme conditions. They began by pumping rubidium atoms into a vacuum chamber, then used lasers to cool the cloud of atoms to just a few degrees above absolute zero. Using extremely weak laser pulses, they then fired single photons into the cloud of atoms. As the photons enter the cloud of cold atoms, its energy excites atoms along its path, causing the photon to slow dramatically. As the photon moves through the cloud, the energy is handed off from atom to atom and eventually exits the cloud with the photon. When they fired 2 photons into the cloud, they were surprised to see them exit together as a single molecule. Although they didn't create a physical lightsaber in this case, this only just proves that such a thing is possible. One of the scientists even claims that this process may one day be used to create 3D crystalline structures out of light alone. But we have to just wait and find out and see if they can actually do this in the near future. Number 7, guided bullets. Imagine you're at war and you see bullets flying directly at your comrades with no misses. While this may be representative of a good marksman, what if that person had guided bullets? Sounds like straight out of a movie, right? Well, in fact, we're actually getting really close to this reality. The X-Acto program, developed by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, otherwise known as DARPA, successfully completed its most recent round of live fire tests in February. The program aimed to create self-steering bullets to increase hit rates for difficult long-distance shots. And yes, you heard that right. Self-steering. The test showed that experienced shooters using the technology were able to repeatedly hit moving and evading targets. And the scariest thing was that even a novice shooter using the system for the first time was able to hit moving targets at really high rates. The X-Acto system uses specially designed ammunition and a real-time optical guidance system to track and direct projectiles to their targets, compensating for factors such as wind, weather, and target movement. While the program's goal is to improve sniper effectiveness and enhance troop safety, if more countries start creating this type of technology, there might as well be no use for a shooting range, especially when you just hit your target 10 out of 10 times. Number 6, a teleportation machine. Teleportation. The ability to transport matter or information instantaneously from one point to another. This is a concept that has captivated science fiction enthusiasts for decades. The catchphrase, "Beam me up, Scotty," from Star Trek is a classic example of this. However, the question remains as to whether teleportation is a realistic possibility. And according to an essay published by scientists at the University of Maryland and Michigan, they claim that teleportation is possible. They're able to transfer information between photons by placing two ions in a vacuum surrounded by electric fields and using a laser pulse to create a quantum state known as entanglement. Shout out Will Smith. The process of entanglement essentially allows two atoms to displace properties from one to another, which in a sense allows information to be teleported between them. This is a significant step towards developing transportation as a technology. However, it is worth noting that this is information teleportation and not physical teleportation. The next step for the team is to improve the precision and efficiency of the communication between the photons. The current method is not yet fast enough or precise enough to be practical for real-world applications. The team is working on ways to improve the system, like using multiple ions instead of just two, which could increase the precision and the speed of the teleportation process. In the hump of our list, we have the time machine. From movies like Back to the Future and Doctor Who, the idea of time travel devices have captivated the imagination of people for decades. However, the idea of a real-life time machine is still a topic of debate among scientists. The theories of Albert Einstein on time and gravity suggest that time travel may be theoretically possible. Einstein's theory of general relativity showed that time is elastic and can stretch or shrink with motion. In this, he also considered that gravity is a factor of time. This means that time can be accelerated by increasing speed, which can be observed with stars and planets light years away. But the question remains, can we build a time machine? The theory of a time machine working by bending the space-time continuum so that time loops back on themselves to form a closed time-like curve is one possible way. To create such a loop, the time machine would need exotic matter with a negative energy density. However, this matter is not known to exist in enough quantity to build a time machine. Some scientists have suggested that a time machine could run without such exotic matter, but this would require a vacuum of normal matter to shift through, allowing the space-time continuum to bend in on itself. However, this theory is highly speculative and requires near impossible manipulation of gravitational fields. While the idea of time travel may be possible in theory, it would take a lot more research and a luck to master the science and build a functional device. Even if a time machine were to exist in the future, it could be more disastrous than any weapon in our arsenal. Number 4, DoomsDay Machine. The idea of a doomsday machine may seem like something out of science fiction, but the Soviet Union actually made a real-life version of one called Perimeter that still exists to this day. The concept of a doomsday device was portrayed in the 1964 film Dr. Strangelove, but it wasn't until recently that it was revealed that the Soviet Union had built a similar system in 1984. The operation is known as Perimeter, and the details of its function have been discussed in recent books and an article in Wired magazine. Perimeter works by trying to find evidence of a nuclear attack on the Soviet Union and communicating with the defense ministries. If there is no communication, the device would bypass traditional layers of command authority and give the ability to launch a nuclear strike to a junior official in a bunker. This was done as a deterrent and to prevent false warnings of a nuclear attack. This just meant that if the entire leadership of the Soviet Union were killed, the ability to launch a nuclear retaliation would still exist, which is a scary thought we all worry about to this day. Number 3, AI and robots. We are experiencing the growth of artificial intelligence, and this only brings more worry on the possible future we have with self-functioning robots. And I mean the ones from those movies like iRobot and other robot movies which have them taking over the world. Yeah, you know those ones. As we see, this is never really a good idea. For example, there's a robotics company named Boston Dynamics and has created robots at an incredible rate that ranges from doing different tasks. For example, they have robots designed after a cheetah that can run at similar speeds, and disturbingly human-like models like Atlas and Petman who just function like humans so much that it's scary. As AI advances as well, it's just a matter of time before these two are together and we have a self-functioning robot that can act on their own. We have seen all the movies and we have read all the books. This is never a good idea, but who knows? If we can get it under our control, it may propel our advancements tenfold. Number 2, Invisibility Cloak. As we've seen in different sci-fi military movies and even the movie Harry Potter, the Invisibility Cloak is a wonderful tool to stay hidden, but many have wondered if such a thing is possible in real life. And yes, they are possible and already are a product being made for militaries across the world. For example, Canada's Hyperstealth Biotechnology already manufactures camouflage uniforms for militaries across the globe, but now the company has patented a new quantum stealth material that disguises military soldiers or even its tanks, aircrafts, and ships by making anything behind it seem invisible. Earlier in October, Hyperstealth filed a patent for the material which doesn't require a power source and is both paper thin and inexpensive, all traits that could make it appealing for use on the battlefield. According to a press release, it works by bending the light around the target to make it seemingly disappear. This light can be in the visible spectrum, or it can be ultraviolet, infrared, or shortwave infrared light, making the material what Hyperstealth calls a broadband invisibility cloak. It's only a matter of time before we have fully invisible troops, tanks, and all sorts of military equipment, which is ultimately something that will affect the way we all make our way through combat. Number 1, the ray gun. Whether you've seen it in a movie or a video game, the ray gun is one of the deadliest concepts of a weapon. Basically, a gun that shoots out high particle beams enough to vaporize whatever it touches. Turns out, this could have been a possibility all due to a renowned scientist known as Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla had a lifelong goal of finding a technological solution to end warfare. Then in 1931, he announced that he was on the verge of discovering a new source of energy that could be used as a death beam or a ray gun to bring down enemy airplanes and make war impossible. The craziest thing was that he claimed it could kill targets up to 500 kilometers away. 500. He then sought funding from JP Morgan Jr. and even attempted to deal directly with Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain of Great Britain, but his proposal generated little interest in funding. Soon after, in 1937, he sent a technical paper describing the death beam to several countries. This included the United States and the Soviet Union, but the idea was ultimately deemed infeasible. Tesla's hope was that his invention would be used for defensive purposes only and would become the anti-war machine. But it remains a subject of conjecture whether his idea was ever taken seriously, and when he passed away in 1943, his invention secrets came down with him. These are the top 10 scary sci-fi technology that could actually exist. What do you guys think about this list? Leave a comment down below with your thoughts, but don't forget to like and subscribe to this video for some more content. I'm your host Andrew, and I hope you guys have a scary day.